Pre-order the Clownfish TV comic book right now on Indiegogo. Go to clownfishtvcomic.com. That's clownfishtvcomic.com. This is a fun collection of all new comic strips based on dumb stuff we've said on the show. Again, that's clownfishtvcomic.com. You're gonna have to hurry. We're only taking pre-orders for a limited time. Now we're gonna get back into the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but we're going to give you an update on the WGA strike, the writer's strike in Hollywood. It's not going the way that they thought it was going to go. In fact, I've talked about this at length in multiple videos. I did not think this was going to go the way that the writers were expecting it to go, because it's no longer 2007, right? This isn't 2007. We have a lot more options, and studios have prepared for this because there's been a lot of talk about a potential strike for many, many months. And now we've got Paramount and HBO and some other studios joining in with Disney and telling showrunners and producers they have to get back to work. They're maybe not allowed to write anything, but they have to do their other duties. I guess they call it the A through H duties, or they face losing their jobs. They're basically being threatened. They have to get back to work. This is not going the way any of these writers thought. I think they thought that the studios were going to kowtow to them and be like, oh my God, yes, we need all of you terrible writers to do more terrible Netflix shows. And as some publications are correctly pointing out, so many of these streaming services, and streaming is what is at stake here, what is the main issue here. So many of these streaming services were cutting back on content before the writers chose to go on strike. I personally thought it was a very bad time to go on strike. Again, I want to be clear, I am not anti-union, but I'm also like, you pick your battles, right? And not everybody who's in the union, frankly, deserves to get paid what they're getting paid. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants. You'll get a woohoo. Woohoo? That's my woohoo. Geeky's not here to give you a woohoo, but she will give you a woohoo. She owes you a woohoo. So check it out. We're at almost 310,000 subs. We need to do a live stream. We don't do many live streams because everything's kind of a chaotic mess over here. We have other businesses we run. We're dealing with some issues there, and trying to grow on many levels. So we will get to the 300,000 live stream when the dust settles a little bit, literally in our case. Anyway, this is deadline. WGA strike, Disney using union busting tactics. Guild says Mouse House, HBO, and CBS, that'd be Paramount, demand showrunners work despite labor action. Update. So yeah, if you're a WGA member, HBO Max respects your membership in the WGA, and we will not do anything to place you in jeopardy of WGA rules, they said on May 2nd. However, we believe certain services, such as participating in the cast process and or contributing to non-writing production and post-production work, are clear examples of non-WGA required services that should continue to be rendered during this time. Under the National Labor Relations Act, the WGA is not permitted to interfere with an employer's right to designate employees to perform certain supervisory functions. Correspondence with accompanying do's and don'ts added. If you fail to provide contracted services due to the strike, HBO and HBO Max will not be obliged to continue your salary. It went on to say in the FAQ portion of the letter. And then perhaps even more so, that calling Guild contract interpretations misleading, there was the kicker. Further, if production is interrupted by the strike, even if you offer to continue your work, HBO Max will not be obliged to continue your salary, nor the salary of the cast and crew. So they are literally telling the showrunners they have to go back to work. And these are the good people, remember. This is, now they're going to say HBO's not because they don't like David Zaslav because, whatever, everything he's doing with CNN. But Disney were the good people. Disney was the good company. HBO, Warner Brothers, the good company. They were the progressive companies. They value you so much that they're telling you if you don't go back to work, if you don't violate the terms of the strike, they're not only going to withhold your salary, but they're also going to penalize the cast and crew. Disney shot out a similar letter with the same iron fist in a velvet glove tone. It's like, well, it'd be a real shame. It's like what they have, Professor Umbridge writing these letters. We want to specifically reiterate to you as showrunner or other writer-producer that you're not excused from performing your duties as a showrunner and or producer on your series. And we covered that yesterday. That was Disney. Disney was first, and then once Disney did it, everybody else did it too. Outside of the Disney empire, Paramount-owned CBS Studios sent out its own letter to showrunners this week, making it crystal clear they are expecting non-writing producing obligations to be fulfilled too. Everyone but Netflix has sent one, an insider told Deadline. However, NBC Universal did not send out a so-called breach letter, sources say. Still, an exec insisted all the studios are planning on sending these letters out. So what's going to happen with Amazon's Lord of the Rings? We covered that yesterday. The showrunners were not going to be on set for the second half of season 2. It might actually be better, but the WGA were pretty unceremonious Friday in their response to the studio letters to showrunners and executive producers. The so-called A through H duties are specifically defined in the Guild contract as writing services and therefore constitute struck work that Guild members are prohibited from doing during a work stoppage, spokesperson said this afternoon. It's shameful that Disney, which has grown its business on unionized labor, is resorting to familiar union-busting tactics. Uncle Walt would be proud. Walt Disney hated unions. He hated unions. He actually, for those of you who keep standing for Disney, I want to tell you, Walt Disney was a Republican. Walt Disney was pretty conservative, especially in his later years, because his studio was almost destroyed by a strike. And he became very anti-communist and anti-union. And in fact, he narked on his own employees. And he went on a rant about communists infiltrating Hollywood and the socialists and during the Red Scare. So I'm just saying, for those of you who are like, oh, Disney's super progressive and they're super inclusive and they love unions and they want to do, no. It goes all the way back to Walt. This is who they are, guys. They also take your representation, your LGBTQ plus IA plus representation, and they put it in a little tiny scene they can cut out for China and Russia so they can sell the movies over there too. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. And they will tell people what they want to hear if they think there's money involved. And now they're starting to learn that I believe on the more progressive side of things, there isn't a lot of money to be had because it's kind of the antithesis of capitalism. They're kind of doing an about face here. I think what's going to happen ultimately is that they're going to use this situation. They're going to use the writer's strike to either push for, more non-union labor or cancel a lot of shows that they know aren't going to perform, or a combination of the both. I think Hollywood is going to look very, very different after this. And I think this is actually going to blow up in the faces of these writers. Again, I want to be clear because we get people in the comments that are like, oh my God, you're anti-union. I'm not anti-union. And frankly, if you can get that money and you think you're being mistreated, go for it. I'm just saying, I have learned through the years that you do not ask your boss for a raise when times are tough because you're a lot less likely to get it. In fact, you put a target on yourself, and if they look at you and they're like, okay, well, how much is Neon getting? Oh, okay. We can get somebody that does as much work as Neon for like a quarter of the price in another country. So he's complaining about getting paid. Yeah, we'll just get rid of him and replace him with somebody else. And that's how these companies think. I'm sorry, that's how they think. They don't like you that much. They like you as long as you're making them money. If you're not making them money and you're causing them headaches, you are disposable. While mainly within the letter of the contracts and agreements covering showrunners and other WGA members in non-WGA roles, the notes from the studios also felt heavy-handed to some scribes. We're professionals, we know our obligations and rights, and we don't need to be spoken to like children like this does, a showrunner who's working on a studio series asserted today. The showrunner confirmed that he had received an email from his employer telling him to show up for work, even though his writing team are on the picket lines. The May 3rd letter from Disney follows a previous correspondence from the House of Mouse from this week on overall guidelines for those working at the company to follow during the WGA strike. If you're engaged to provide non-WGA services but happen to be a WGA member, for example, director, actor, or producer, Disney will defend and indemnify you from any fines levied against you, the note stated. Yeah, so here's the thing. This could this could cost Hollywood $2 billion. So it might just be the beginning. I think this could be the beginning of fundamental change in Hollywood. I think streamers blew up too quickly. They greenlit too much content. And it's 95% of the content that, especially Netflix, churns out does not bring any value to the platform. And again, these writers who are working on these shows that do not bring any value to the platform are putting a huge target on themselves and their teams. And they might just decide it is easier to part ways than to lose a lot more money paying you. And companies have done this multiple times in the past. They might ratify a union and then they turn around 6 months later and they're like, yep, let's just get rid of all the unionized employees. And this happened at Kickstarter too. I remember this happened at Kickstarter. All the employees that unionized basically got gone within a couple months of the pandemic starting. Kickstarter said, oh, we're having financial problems now because of the pandemic, guys. Sorry, we can't afford to pay you. And it just happened to be all the employees that were giving the company a lot of negative headlines for trying to bust a union and all this other stuff. And Kickstarter's like, we're one of the most chill companies to work for. You're just mad that we're publishing things that you don't like. And that was not supposed to be part of the agreement. And for some reason in the comic book industry, especially, all of these unions want the right to dictate what kind of content the publisher publishes. It's like, I'm not trying to be an asshole, right? But you work for me. I pay you. You work on the projects I pay you to work on. If you do not like to work on those projects, you go to another company that produces the kind of content you like. In the meantime, we are trying to make money. So I'm just saying, I would be like, nah, piss off. So this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. Writers' strike fallout, $2 billion economic impact, maybe just the beginning. If the current work stoppage approaches the 100 days of 2007-2008, the financial consequences could eclipse the last walkout. Experts say after that, all bets are off on who emerges with leverage. I don't think the writers are going to have leverage. They said when writers manned the picket lines 15 years ago, the fallout of the 100-day stoppage was around $2 billion. This time, the financial toll may be greater and felt faster, predicts Kevin Clouden, chief global strategist at Milken Institute, pointing out that the estimate that the last work stoppage cost the California economy roughly that amount. Could we see more? Absolutely. Absolutely, because Hollywood pumps millions of dollars a day into hotels, restaurants, and construction companies, among others, not to mention the pay from workers that support those sectors. A single major film production shooting on location contributes $250,000 a day to the local economy, per the Motion Picture Association. Wow, that's going to suck. So you mean downtown Los Angeles might look like Escape from LA? Kind of like some of the pictures I've seen lately. I don't know. The last writer's strike dealt a blow to California's struggling finances to the tune of $772 million in lost wages and $981 million in lost revenue for various businesses that service the industry. Korea will be doing fine. The economic consequence of this work stoppage will, of course, depend on how long it lasts. This early on, industry insiders declined to speculate on the depth of the economic impact, but note that the strike is positioned to last as at least as long as the last one. If a protracted strike occurs and lasts 6 months or longer, it could hurt many media companies. The companies most exposed to a long strike, pipelines will dry up and consumers will react negatively to library reruns. Consumers are reacting negatively to library first runs. That's the problem here. Again, we're not dealing with a bunch of writers that are working on the current year Friends, or, you know what I'm saying? They're not working on Seinfeld. They're not working on must-see TV. The vast majority of them are working on streaming shows that nobody watches, that bring no value to the platform. And the studios at this point in time, because again, it's not 2007, I personally think they are in the catbird seat. I think they will be able to get what they want out of it. And I think that at the end of it, we might have a very different ecosystem. And we did another video, and it's going to be posted later today, talking about AI and how some studios are flat out saying they're going to use AI to some degree to help with the writing process. It's just, I mean, they're just going to, and this is actually going to speed that up. What the strike is trying to do is slow down the adoption of AI technology in the writer's room, and it actually will speed it up according to some people in this article. And again, this is in a video we're going to post separately. So this is coming from World Socialist Web News. TV and film corporations use U.S. writer strike to threaten mass firings. So this is a socialist site, by the way. The writer's strike, which began on Tuesday, pits some 11,000 members of the WGA against some of the biggest multinational corporations on the planet, Amazon, Fox, and Disney. Writers are not only on strike to reverse a steady decline in their living standards, they're also engaged in a struggle over which class and in whose interest the film and television programs billions of people around the world watch will be created. Thankfully, we've got YouTube, where we also own the means of production. Don't really own the means of distribution, but YouTubers directly create content and get paid directly for that content. YouTube takes a cut. Unfortunately, they take a cut, but they're selling the ads. So it's, we do not own the means of distribution, which is a huge problem, because if YouTube decides to go dark, then a lot of people are out of work, right? Do we go on strike for that? Can we go on strike? I don't think we can go on strike for that. That the strike is already causing concern among shareholders and executives was reflected in letters sent by legal departments by some of the studios. Again, HBO, Disney, CBS sent threatening letters to showrunners demanding they cross the picket line and continue work. A showrunner is a primary creative person or persons, almost always a writer, often the executive producer who leads a project. So they basically said, if you fail to provide your contracted services, we're not gonna continue your salary, guys. So they go through and they've got some interviews with some writers I've not heard of before, but yeah, whatever. And they're like, we're important. We're important. Brian currently works on a reactionary program that glorifies American policing. Was it like Cops or something? The script I wrote that got me the job was about the Haymarket bombing, so while I might not be able to get it into my writing on the show that I'm currently on, is something I'm constantly thinking about. So they're basically talking about, the only way my parents' generation came of age in the 80s after Reagan effed over the air traffic controllers. Like that stuff we weren't taught about until we had to force the issue. So again, fight the man. And look, if you can get the money, get the money. Good on you. I just don't think it's going to go the way that they think it's going to go for sure. And it's very telling that these companies that you've been standing for all this time aren't as progressive, aren't as liberal as you thought they were when it comes to money. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. And you're making yourself a pain in their ass, and they will replace you somehow. They'll either force you to play ball by their rules, or they will replace you. I'm sorry. That's my personal opinion on the situation. Thankfully, I am not in the union, so it does not affect me, but good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later. Help support the channel. Go to thereef.support and get early access to podcasts, videos, and other content. That's thereef.support.